There are locations that were never intended to be discovered and items that shouldn't be there, along with stories. Archaic and too bizarre for our textbooks, you will enter a realm for the next hour where science cannot provide any solutions. These are the hidden facts that cause history to break and reasoning to fall apart. You can't unseen them once you've seen them after generations of stillness. A skeleton is concealed in the nooks and crannies of antiquated lore and forbidden discoveries. Little and so strange that it may destroy all we believe just by being. We are aware of the origins of humans standing little higher than a water bottle. Almost as big as its torso, the supposedly 10,000-year-old dwarf skeleton has turned into a mystery that is discussed among conspiracy theorists and archaeologists. Is it a genetic abnormality, a lost branch of humanity, or something else entirely human at all? But mainstream science ignores the handful who have the courage to. When you look at it closely, you come to the terrifying conclusion that this little creature doesn't belong in a place on the evolutionary. There is an anatomical contradiction that cannot be disregarded. Requires us to examine the prehistoric shadows more closely at the core of the startlingly unusual body size of the entire mystery. At first glance, the skeletal structure, which is just 15 to 20 centimeters tall, looks like an underdeveloped human fetus. However, a deeper look at the skeletal characteristics shows on the contrary. This is not your typical baby. The bone system is completely unified with fully formed characteristics from entire ribs and aligned vertebrae. Despite their small size, they have a distinct sternum and structure to their chest. Limbs exhibit symmetrical dimensions and fully developed articulated joints. Notably, the fingers and toes on the hands and feet are clearly divided. Something infrequently observed in an embryo or immature creature. All of these characteristics have caused many to speculate that this might be a fully grown monster. But it belongs to a little creatures completely different from contemporary humans. One of the most startling one of these skeleton's characteristics is its incredibly big skull in relation to the remainder of the body, to the point where it instantly conjures up pictures of alien creatures. In popular culture, descriptions state that the skull makes about almost half of the entire body length, resulting in a startling and extremely uncommon imbalance. Most significantly, the eye socket's extraordinary size greatly outweighs their dimensions. Discovered in contemporary humans, indicating that this organism might have adapted to low-light conditions or possibly had an entirely distinct visual system. Furthermore, the nasal cavity is small and nearly underdeveloped, suggesting that it's possible that the jawbone's primary sensory function was not scent. Additionally, some specimens have missing or partial structure, perhaps as a result of remarkably, neither post-mortem degradation nor its original biological properties. Teeth were discovered, generating several theories about its nutritional status, biological age, or the potential that this being, in contrast to human infants, they belong to an entirely different evolutionary branch, whose soft, immature bones take years to develop into this skeleton, shows distinct indications of biological maturity in spite of its minuscule size. The limbs are symmetrical, the joints are completely united, and the cranium is completely developed, characteristics that are only found in fully grown beings. This creates a terrifying query: is this an adult member of an unidentified species of little humans, or is there only a very uncommon genetic mutation in humans that, even in the most severe cases, contemporary medicine has never recorded instances of congenital dwarfism? It is extremely uncommon to find such. The idea of a totally different species is becoming more and more plausible due to balanced and full skeletal growth. Challenging to ignore one element that particularly confounds researchers is that there are no indications of any abnormalities or diseases in the skeleton. Frequently observed in congenital dwarfism situations, usually developmental curved bones that are misaligned, are obvious anomalies associated with illnesses that result in severely tiny stature, lopsided skulls, or malformed limbs. But in this instance, the complete skeleton construction seems oddly consistent and balanced, as though it were created in accordance with a whole biological blueprint that is distinct from that of contemporary people. Are not indicative of skeletal malformations or trauma-related degenerative diseases. This lack of anomalies is exactly what makes the mystery deeper, because it raises the possibility that this entity is not an imperfect product of evolution, but instead a unique species that was always intended to must be compact, symmetrical, and distinct. This has disturbing ramifications if the skeleton is real, as many people think. It either represents an entirely unidentified subspecies of humans, or even more contentious, some cite legends as evidence of a non-human intelligent creature. Prevalent in traditional cultures worldwide, stories of small individuals who from the Hopi ant people to the Hawaiians. They all lived in forests, caverns, or mountains. Minahun. The idea of tiny people has a long history in mythology. Could this be a tangible relic of mythology that has been made into a reality on a worldwide scale? Naturally, conventional science has largely disregarded these findings, frequently calling the skeleton a fabrication, a case of severe pathology, or perhaps a mistaken fetus. Although detractors of this view emphasizes that no illness currently understood by modern science completely explains the bone structure that was seen, in addition to radiocarbon dating on the age of the surrounding materials has been determined to be above 10,000 years, placing this existence during the final stages of the previous ice age, when the Earth's biosphere and environment were very different. Skeptics frequently point out that there is a dearth of peer-reviewed limited sample availability and the artifact's dubious provenance, but if this skeleton is real, that's exactly what keeps the mystery alive. If it is a hoax, why hasn't it been proven false throughout the years since it first appeared? And if it's true, why hasn't it been investigated further? Reports about it inexplicably vanish. And why do researchers those who look into it frequently find their work ignored or suppressed? Only become more intricate if this belonged to a prehistoric little race. What occurred to them? Were they a rare evolutionary offshoot? Or were they exterminated by sickness, natural calamities, or rivalry with larger hominids? Could they still be concealed in isolated, uncharted regions of the Earth, or worse, purposefully concealed in the era of DNA sequencing, microscopic examination? And it would seem simple to answer such a conundrum with international scientific cooperation. However, maybe that's why this instance is so unsettling. The 10,000-year-old dwarf skeletons are abnormal not just in terms of structure and bone, but also in institutional responsiveness to scientific therapy and our readiness to recognize that not everything can be neatly categorized. It stands tiny, silent and delicate as a test of the limits of human comprehension, and then the end. The skeleton makes us face a reality that many people are reluctant to acknowledge. That the Earth may be far stranger than we think, and that human history may have once been home to creatures that are now only found in mythical shadows and forgotten bones. Do you believe that this small skeleton is actually a long-lost branch of ancient science, has never found any evidence of extraterrestrial life in humans, or simply an incredibly uncommon mutation that has been overstated over time? Comments: which idea do you think is most likely to be true, and why? Your viewpoint could lead to a very different perception of this. Tens of thousands of years have passed since the mystery began. Off the edge of Antarctica, in the icy, barren waters where sunshine never reaches, and any man-made apparatus would be destroyed by the crushing pressure. On August 29, 1964, the American research vessel's picture appeared out of nowhere. Elena unintentionally took a picture of an odd thing standing up on the ocean floor almost 4,000 meters deep. It wasn't a rock, and it didn't look more like an antenna than any known marine life. With a structure that is precisely symmetrical and appears to have been put together using cutting-edge technology. Looked like a signal-receiving apparatus, with tiny branches extending forth informations that are uniformly spaced, seemingly intended for a certain purpose. However, who or what might have put it in an area that has hardly been touched by humans? Presence. And why is it that we are still unable to say with clarity what from that point on? One of the most puzzling riddles of the ocean was the Elena antenna was created, and what makes it so eerie is the stream of strange, unlikely, yet impossible to completely rule out speculations regarding its genesis, its actual nature and function at a depth of more than 4,000 meters beneath the cold Antarctic waters, where there's almost little life and the water pressure is sufficient to crush most artificial gadgets. A curiously shaped object surfaced in a picture captured by what shocked experts about the research vessel Alanin was its extremely symmetrical construction that appeared to be a vertical column that was purposefully intended standing solidly on the ocean floor, its branches spiraling forth in equal distances. It didn't appear like coral and instead resembled a signal antenna. soft-bodied marine creature that lacks all characteristics of silt found in nature. Forms no organic covering or indications of marine development were present, and the majority notably, there is none of the rust or degradation that one would anticipate from submerged metal over time. At the time, several experts hypothesized that it might have been equipment dropped from a research station or submarine. But there were no lost device reports for the region, and more significantly, there were no cables, mechanical components, or any proof that it was ever associated with humans' activity since then. Its anonymous existence and ostensibly manufactured form have led to a plethora of enigmatic hypotheses on its actual origin. The position of the eland antenna is what makes it even unusual. Was discovered in a secluded deep-sea area off the Antarctic coast, far from any oil rigs, ports, and shipping lanes. Are areas that are essentially uninhabited by people, characterized by harsh environmental circumstances, such as cold temperatures and high pressure. The existence of any, it is challenging to operate a man-made equipment at a depth of more than 4,000 meters in such a remote location. Acknowledge that the technology of the 1960s was capable of securely fastening a metal. It would have been extremely difficult to bring structure to the ocean floor at that depth unless it originated from a source other than the eland antenna's strange appearance has led to its human origin. Become a popular topic in communities of fringe scientists whose views frequently common knowledge that ranges from startling to downright unsettling. Some of the most talked about. This is arguably the most well-known and audacious notion according to several UFO researchers. One kind of environmental sensor or signal transmitter is the eland antenna, planted in order to gather information on Earth's antenna-like structure that looks like atmospheric sensors or passive satellites created by humans. But the fact that it is located in such a remote and deep place causes many to think that humans couldn't have constructed it. Based on certain unconfirmed reports, even assert that the gadget might be a component of a covert communications infrastructure that connects deep down sea areas to unidentified extraterrestrial sites on Earth. Another theory proposes the alternate antenna is a relic from humanity's distant past rather than something otherworldly. According to this view, there may have been a highly developed society for tens of thousands of years ago, but was destroyed by natural disasters like floods. The eland antenna might be a component of a tectonic shift or other calamity. Buried technical installation that may have been utilized for research or observation of the ancient climate. Some have even claimed that it might be remnants of the mythical civilization of Atlantis, which was sucked up by the sea. Technology from lost civilizations like Atlantis. A more realistic yet enigmatic theory is that the eland antennas could be a component of a military program that is classified. During the Cold War, the United States or another superpower in the 1960s, armed forces frequently experimented with deep underwater communication tools, submarine tracking equipment, or sea listening stations. But what raises eyebrows is that this item was left uncovered and uncamouflaged, and lacked the distinct technological cues that military gear should have. Years after when the eland antenna photo was made public, numerous marine biologists tried to dispel the enigmatic hypotheses. By providing a biological justification, the item might be acladhesic concretions, a type of deep-sea sponge. This soft-bodied creature grows uniformly and clings to the water floor. Branches that are spread apart to filter food from flowing currents. They propose that the look of the antenna was only the consequence of an accidental camera angle, making although natural formations appear to be artificial. Other studies counted that the area where the object was discovered has not been known to have any clashes. Additionally, the shape of the organism nevertheless deviates greatly from the original image. Most noticeably, it would be extremely difficult for a soft-bodied marine creature to stand up straight and stay securely fastened beneath the deep marine environment's persistent currents, arguably the most perplexing feature of all, almost 60 years later. No formal research, scientific inquiry, or recovery has yet to be conducted. Attempt at the item. The few photographs captured in 1964 continue to be the sole piece of information that has led to conjecture that specifics have been suppressed or that governments might be aware of more information than they have disclosed. Some conspiracy theorists even contend that the eland vessel was more than a simple study ship, but a clandestine observation plane, and that its findings might have exceeded public expectations. If this was a signaling device, another question that comes up is where it was communicating to. Could there be more of these? Items concealed from view beneath dirt. Could there be an ancient or undiscovered extraterrestrial network working covertly beneath the ocean floor? Do you think the Elenin antenna is really a strange-looking sea sponge, or is it something else entirely? Many more may be a gadget connected to extraterrestrial life or technology echoes from lost civilization. Post your ideas and speculations in the comments section. They could lead to a new direction. Figuring out a secret that hasn't been solved in more than 50 years in Russia's far-flung highlands and icy old forests, where it appears that contemporary human footsteps have never arrived at something that subtly exists and defies our preconceived notions. Across untamed landscapes, enormous stone spheres that are almost perfectly shaped and belong to no known civilization. There are no surrounding ruins, no folklore, and no history explanation. No one knows who made these, and they are not on exhibit in museums. Nobody understands why, and even more perplexingly, nobody knows for what reason they are. Why are they so perfect if they are a natural product? Created by people back then who were capable of creating such items in such isolated locations. And that subject still hasn't been addressed in an era without contemporary technologies. And for that reason, the Russian megaspheres remain one of the most fascinating and strange mysteries to this day. Remained on Earth, these enormous stone spheres may initially appear to be the gradual deterioration caused by natural processes like mineral concretions, but as time passes and more closely examined, some odd details become. Some spheres appear to be more than 3 meters in diameter, weigh many tons, and feature almost completely smooth surfaces, have a surprising number of sharp symmetrical veining, concentric grooves, and even straight, accurate cuts that seem to have been created using contemporary equipment. These features not only surpass what natural geological formation usually results in, but also prompt scientists to pose a significant question. Do these formations appear to be genuinely natural, or are they proof of an ancient civilization that has not yet been acknowledged in human history? In contrast to the well-known stone monuments from South America or Egypt that are precisely dated and located and that are unmistakably associated with particular cultures, the stone spheres found in Russia are completely contained within recognized human settlements. Devoid of any recognized historical context, they are not included in local legends, don't have any carvings or inscriptions that indicate human activity or nearby ritual use, and, most significantly, no ancient society that is known to have resided in the area is said to have had the technology necessary to create such enormous, precisely spherical stone artifacts that archaeologists have failed to connect to the ancient rows, the Scythians, or anyone. Stone or metal implements were used by the indigenous tribe that is known to have inhabited the area. Ever found might have been utilized to manufacture these bulky, geometrically accurate stone spheres. Even now, a granite sphere made of more than 2 heavy industrial equipment would be needed to precisely measure objects up to 3 m in diameter. Transportation cranes and sophisticated CNC methods. Therefore, who made them? And the fact that the question is still open today. Some geologists have suggested that the process of concretion, a rare natural event, could be the cause of these stone spheres, where minerals progressively build up and crystallize over time to approximately spherical forms. Although these concretions typically take the form of lumpy, uneven masses that frequently have hollow cores or observable internal layering, whereas the Russian spheres show absolutely various characteristics, even composition, smooth surfaces, and symmetrical stone patterns, and incredibly solid cores that all point to an uncommon degree of constancy that is hard to explain by chance natural processes. What is even more remarkable is the total lack of any indications of human activity. There are no signs of settlements, foundations, or tools surrounding the spheres. There are no graveyards, pottery fragments, or cultural sediments. It seems like someone had dropped these enormous spheres straight out of the sky and disappeared, leaving nothing in their wake. However, the utter quiet of stone and time, the sphere is among the greatest intricate geometric forms that are difficult to make by hand. It is the most symmetrical shape and perhaps the most difficult to duplicate without specialized knowledge throughout human history. The sphere has frequently represented the universe's totality and ultimate power. Why was the sphere chosen as the most challenging shape if these items were purposefully made? Simpler shapes like pyramids, cubes, or cylinders. Some alternative researchers conjecture that these might be revered representations of a vanished celestial culture, signs or even antiquated devices that have been abandoned from a bygone era far beyond historical records. In the Russian Chelyabinsk region, Local numerous enormous stone spheres that are partially buried underground have been found by locals. Some of them emerge from the forest floor as though they had just been put there, but they are covered in tangled tree roots and heavy moss. Independent archaeological teams have suggested that they have been undisturbed for hundreds of years, if not longer, have carried out structural measurements and coarse sampling. However, they are still unable to pinpoint the precise age of formation because there isn't any organic matter present to accommodate carbon. Interestingly, in one instance, a sphere that weighed more than 5 tons was raised using crane for examination, and the findings demonstrated that it was entirely solid from surface to core. That contrasts starkly, neither layered nor hollow with common natural formations. This particular aspect has reignited the interest in contentious hypothesis that the spheres might have been created artificially. While contemporary, when science is unable to produce adequate results, imagination starts to map boulder routes. According to some ideas, the Russian stone spheres might be remains of a highly developed prehistoric society that predated the Sumerians by a considerable amount of Egyptians and disappeared without leaving any obvious signs. According to this theory, a flawless spherical shape could have served as an astronomy instrument, a religious emblem, or perhaps a piece of some outdated technology that we can't even begin to understand today. Some even continue to suggest that these spheres might be remnants of technology from other planets, acting as navigational markers, energy collectors, or parts of a now-defunct mechanism. Although these theories can seem unrealistic, there isn't enough concrete proof. In addition to the sphere's exceptionally high degree of accuracy and their utterly enigmatic appearance indicates that these views cannot be completely disregarded, particularly in light of the comparable stone. Additionally, spheres have been discovered in Guatemala, Bosnia, and Costa Rica, making what appears to be an international web of inexplicable occurrences that contemporary science has not yet provided a thorough explanation of. Why Russian mesospheres are not well-known landmarks. Despite not being UNESCO World Heritage Sites, they have a spooky charm due to their remote location, perfect geometry, and the total lack of cultural background. They provide tangible representations of a void in humanity's comprehension of its own history, quiet evidence that something might have existed outside of our present understanding. In this age of quickly developing technology and artificial intelligence, are we finally prepared to retrieve these lost relics and pose meaningful questions about them, the pieces that are still missing from Earth's vast puzzle? How do you feel about these enigmatic spheres? Could they really be natural phenomenon? Or are they relics of a vanished civilization interred by, or maybe they were from a different intelligence than our own? Your hypothesis in the comments below. We'd be interested in knowing what you think and why. Your one audacious suggestion could be the secret to opening one of humanity's biggest mysteries hidden deep in New York's foggy woods. Nestled amid the old forest canopy of New Zealand's North Island is an odd. Few people are aware of this enormous wall made of rectangular stone. Blocks are piled with unsettling accuracy. There is no legend or sign to indicate their presence. Narrates its story, but silence and stones are the only historical records that acknowledge it, that appear to hint at a bygone era that has been wiped from human memory. Maui, the original occupants of this country, did not mention it. Nobody is aware of it. Who constructed it? And perhaps most disturbing of all, nobody appears to recall its existence. Could this be the remnant of a long-gone civilization that disappeared before history was written penned? Or is it proof of a mystery that humans in time have purposefully buried? One of the most amazing features of the Kimanawa wall isn't its peculiar form or the rectangular blocks appeared to have been made by hand, but instead the total quiet of history surrounding it. Across the whole body of Maui's genealogy records, spiritual beliefs, and oral traditions, New Zealand's indigenous people and its sole pre-modern residents are not. There is not a single reference to this wall, its name, tale, ceremony, or hallowed location. This poses an extremely perplexing query. How could such a big structure entirely disappear from a culture's collective memory? Major events in the Maui's rich and accurate oral tradition. Traditional melodies serve as a reminder of ancestral lineages and sacred locales. Genealogies and water folktales, curacao and wake papaya, these sacred components are transmitted through the generations to ensure that they remain part of the collective knowledge. Why, then, Is the Kaimanawa Wall completely missing from this extensive cultural recollection? This auto-mission has raised fundamental queries. Could this be artifact from a pre-Maui civilization that existed here for a very long time before the arrival of the Polynesians? Or is it just a naturally occurring geological structure that by chance assumes an eerie form that deceives the human eye into seeing architecture when looking at the physical features? The problem becomes more complicated. Why does the rock formation not resemble any recognized type of natural formation if it is geological fissure that is typical to the area? But if it was created by humans, who did it? Who were they? Where did they reside? And what might have caused all evidence of them to utterly disappear? Not even a myth, symbol, or narrative to be passed down to future generations. Keep in mind that the Kaimanawa Wall has not only been completely ignored in indigenous documents or traditions, but became the focus of a contentious hypothesis that suggests New Zealand may have once been the location of an ancient, long-standing culture prior to the Maui people's arrival. According to some independent researchers and alternative scholars believe that the wall made of stacked rectangular pieces of basalt for them, straight, ordered layers are the ultimate result of natural geological processes. Remains of a prehistoric society whose culture has been nearly completely obliterated by time and history. According to this viewpoint, the Polynesian forebears of the Maui were latecomers to Aeron, not the original inhabitants. Might have unintentionally occupied a piece of land that was previously inhabited by another people. If this is the case, then the Kaimanawa Wall is a silent riddle that goes beyond simple archaeology. A live and forgotten reminder of a period of history that was never recorded, a period without a name, descendants, and there are no stories to recall it. But the conventional scientific community vehemently disagrees with this theory, classifying it as a type of credible pseudo-archaeology argument devoid of empirical support, archaeological evidence, or trustworthy dating techniques that are frequently motivated by feelings or prejudice. Some researchers even contend that endorsing a prima there may be unspoken racial implications in civilization theory, since it runs the risk of the Maui's legitimate position as the land's original inhabitants and cultural stewards. But the reality nevertheless stands that there is still a wall with a mysterious structure that no recognized scientific explanation has not yet been provided. If it is natural, why hasn't? If the excavation is man-made, why is there no sound? There isn't even any. Many people's suspicions are only strengthened by thorough inquiry, which may be beneath. There is a truth in those moss-covered stones that modern history is not yet prepared to confront. The Kaimanawa Wall's location is difficult to reach. It is deep detail in the wooded region near the Wuru military training facility, which has limited investigation and public access. Some solo explorers have allegedly denied entry or advised not to continue. More worrisomely, there is no official archaeological. The site has never been excavation, and there are no peer-reviewed, there are no published radiometric tests or thorough geological investigations. In contrast to other enigmatic ruins across the globe that draw curiosity from scholars and the government, the Kaimanawa Wall continues to be largely disregarded. This disregard for such a unique formation has only made fringe researchers more suspicious. Is there a possibility that something is being concealed? Could there be discoveries at the location? Question what we now know about the history of humanity in New Zealand, and possibly even the chronology of human migration. A peculiar element that adds to the mystery is that there are very few locals. Despite the Kiowa Wall's close proximity to public spaces, locals are even aware of it. Roots: the majority of those who know about it have only heard about it online or through independent YouTube films. It should show up if it was simply a natural stone arrangement. If the building and the geological records were actually ancient, there should be at least. Maui oral tradition contains at least one reference, but neither is present, as if this wall was purposefully erased from human memory by someone somewhere. Some have contrasted this with the Mandela effect, which is a phenomenon in which groups of collectively forget something. But in the instance of the wall at Kaimanawa, this feels like the Mandela effect in reverse, with humanity remembered instead of forgotten. Forgets absolutely nothing, despite the fact that the evidence is right in front of us. The Kaimanawa Wall is more than simply a group of stones. It symbolizes the clash between alternate imagination and official science, between what we acknowledge as true and what we decide to disregard. And above all, it is a question without a response. Who constructed it? Why wasn't it recorded by the Maui? And might this be the final remnant of a vanished civilization wiped out of history? Maybe rather than rejecting it, we should start by admitting what we don't yet recognize, that the quiet stones of the Kimanawa forest might one day shout louder than all of our recorded histories and compel us to revise the narrative of who arrived first. Do you believe that the Kimanawa wall is merely a chance natural formation? Or might it actually be the remains of a civilization that time has purposefully obscured? In history, could we be missing an important part of the human tale of the South Pacific? Leave a remark below with your opinions. And if you have any own theory, don't be afraid to voice it. Your viewpoint could open a very different perspective on this enigma buried beneath Luxus Desert. Sun is a monument that has endured empires. The Karak Temple is enormous, grand, and timeless. Although it is concealed among its tall secret that no textbook ever taught us is hidden behind pillars and worn hieroglyphs. Secret that cannot be seen but can be heard through vibration rather than words. Stone, this is an old cathedral, a forgotten mechanism, and more than just a temple. Of sound in some rooms, stone columns reverberate with a whisper. Carries for meters. No one can completely explain why a tap causes a tremor. Greetings from the Karnak Sound Temple, a hallowed place where echoes never go away. Where, if you can listen, the past is still speaking and not silent. Amidst the maze of historic sites where deities were once revered and pharaohs left their imprints, a peculiar phenomena has caught the interest of sound engineers, archaeologists, and some of the stone columns of the Karak Temple share the same properties as contemporary scientists. Capacity to reverberate when tapped lightly or even when spoken close to the sound created is sometimes a deep, eerie hum rather than just an echo. This is remarkable because it trembles like an old musical instrument that has been silent for thousands of years. Phenomena is not arbitrary. It regularly happens in particular places, reproducible, and has maintained a remarkable level of stability over time in spite of the impact of weather erosion and the passing of time, which has resulted in several to think that this is a purposeful design created over thousands of years ago. What's so amazing about this event isn't just the music, but also how unlikely it was. These aren't unintentional echoes from hollow walls or stone fissures. It seems as though deliberate precision was used in the construction of these resonating columns. It seems as though the ancient Karnak architects were aware of acoustic concepts long before modern physics was invented. Modern archaeologists and sound technologists have researched the peculiar columns within the Karak Temple and found an intriguing phenomenon. Certain pillars generate sound at certain frequencies, falling between 80 and 120 Hz, which corresponds to the human voice's lowest range or the soft beat of a heart that beats slowly. When one is close by, one doesn't only listen to the sound, they get shivers, a little pressure in their chest, or a vibrating feeling in time. With the resonance of these physiological responses have prompted scientists to put up a daring theory. Could this sonic phenomenon was purposefully created by the ancient Egyptians for rituals to create or dread, or even a feeling of sacredness? The idea that these can transform the human mind into a spiritual condition is even more convincing. During CT scans and ground-penetrating tests, columns were not completely solid. Radar indicates pockets with different densities inside the cores of granite and sandstone. These discrepancies, according to some, were strategically positioned to produce a particular vibratory response when interacting. One of the most fascinating features is the intricate geometry of. Despite appearances, the stone columns are not completely symmetrical. Rather, many have delicate curves, tapering gradually, or vertical flutes etched onto them, toward the uppermost elements that might have been purposefully created to direct the sound wave's path. The surrounding in some parts of the temple space also adds to the mood. A whisper can be plainly heard around the room, but a shout can be inexplicably absorbed into stillness. This arrangement conveys a profound level of acoustics knowledge, transcend appearances, as though Karnak was intended to be seen as well as be heard. Although the actual function of the Karak Temple's resonating columns is still unknown, many theories, both esoteric and scientific, have been put forth to explain their role. According to a well-known hypothesis, these pillars' low-frequency sounds were employed in initiation ceremonies or meditation techniques. These deep, steady vibrations might have caused changes in states of consciousness that resemble the impact of contemporary binaural beats utilized in meditation or shamanic drumming. Participants would not just hear the sound with their ears during such instances. They would experience it all throughout their bodies as though the room were pulsing in time with their thoughts. According to a different idea, these columns weren't merely architectural features but instruments to call upon the holy, using sound as a conduit for communication. The powerful reverberation that resulted by priests striking the columns would fill the temple hall, which is thought to be the voice of the gods, fostering an environment of awe and reverence, which give prayers a sense of sanctity and vitality. According to contemporary experts, the ancient Egyptians might have comprehended and used field sound therapy. Science is just starting to investigate the frequencies that the columns transmit, particularly in the enclosed area of the temple, might have matched with natural healing frequencies like alpha or theta brain waves, aid in calming and re-establishing equilibrium between the human body and mind. If according to this notion, Karnak was more than just a house of worship, it was also a therapeutic facility using antiquated acoustic technology that is considerably more scientific knowledge of the era. But the final truth is still only a few reach no historical document or old inscription can account for this feature. Demonstrates that Karat's resonating columns continue to be among Egypt's most eerie scientific riddles, a historical whisper etched in stone. And it's not just Creek, but several megalithic sites have also recorded similar sonic phenomena. The hypoderm of Hal, the oracle chamber at Shaven-Duata, Peru, Salami in Malta, and even portions of the Great Pyramid. But one important feature sets Creek apart: its scale, which is more over 100. The possibility of such stone columns, which are around 10 meters tall and 3 meters in diameter. It is extremely unlikely for acoustic engineering to occur by mistake or still don't entirely understand how these ancients, without the use of lasers, satellites, and artificial intelligence, sound could have been sculpted into stone with metal tools or digital models. Historical knowledge, a lost science that combined architectural ritual. The Karnak Sound Temple integrates sound and spiritual technology. There are more questions than answers. Were these resonating columns the result of miraculous occurrences or intentional instruments? Ancient Egyptians used vibrational physics to create divine power. Or do we? Despite all of our technological advancements, one item remains deaf to the voices of the past. You can be sure that there are no echoes when you move between those enormous pillars. Feel them as the air vibrates and the stone hums. And at those moments, you are no longer merely a guest. You are a member of something timeless and profoundly human. Something that we might never completely comprehend. Maybe some mysteries aren't supposed to be resolved. Maybe they're supposed to be heard when the stone columns of Akarak only a natural occurrence. Or are they proof of the ancient? The acoustic understanding of the Egyptians was well beyond their time. Could we be observing a long-forgotten type of spiritual technology? Tell us in the comments if you think this is a sign of ancient intelligence or natural occurrence. Things contemporary science has not yet figured out. The Campania region of Italy, which was formerly the most opulent Roman Empire holiday paradise, has a structure that has stunned both contemporary engineers and archaeologists. The Bayer tunnels are more than just the remains of abandoned passageways. They are underground labyrinth that is expertly constructed with incredible accuracy, combining geothermal engineering, architecture, aerodynamics, and psychological consequences at each stage. Every subsurface hot water stream in the votive chamber appears to adhere to a secret scientific theory, or possibly a secret that transcends contemporary comprehension. Who created this system and why is it so intricate? And above all, could this be proof of a certain degree of technology? That history has purposefully removed a passage that leads to darkness raises issues that have the potential to challenge what we believe to be true about the Baha'i. Was sometimes referred to as the opulent Las Vegas of ancient Rome. Resort town where aristocrats, generals, and emperors congregated to partake in opulent homes, magical ceremonies, and hot springs. But underneath this magnificent surface, archaeologists discovered an extensive system of tunnels, flowing through volcanic rock for hundreds of meters with a far beyond the necessities of the inhabitants in that time period. These tunnels weren't just some routes dropped sharply into the ground, such as aqueducts or storage passageways. Some even join as they narrow before abruptly expanding into high-volume chambers. straight to subterranean hot springs with remarkably regulated temperatures. The Romans, or possibly an earlier civilization, are suggested by the spatial arrangement of light, water movement, humidity, and airflow. Every physical feature had been meticulously studied by civilization, thus, that even now, to duplicate it, we would require contemporary instruments. What amazes modern the most impressive aspect of the Bayer tunnel system for engineers is the exceptional degree of engineering in both design and architecture that goes well beyond the traditional architectural norms of antiquity. Materials like piano volcanic rock, which is soft and easy to form, and dash was utilized for more than only its malleability. It was also used to make a remarkably resilient water-resistant concrete that has held up for millennia. Several tunnel segments are notable for having completely parabolic arches, structural shape that disperses pressure from the earth above it evenly and successfully stops collapse. What's even more amazing is that each architectural detail, ranging from wall slopes and support column spacing to it, looks as though the builders had access to precise calculations for the arch curvature and subterranean drainage. To digital blueprints before the invention of computers. Most remarkable of allies, a naturally occurring hot water channeling system that uses only pressure and gravity differences without mechanical systems to smoothly move water to ceremonial subterranean chambers. The water emits a gentle sound as it flows because to the fluctuating pressure, perhaps purposefully created as a spiritual impact. The muttering sound enhancing the traditional understanding of communication with the underworld. Tunnels beneath the surface are more than just physical technical marvels. They are likewise masterworks of psychology that are purposefully designed to influence human perception and emotions. Suddenly, narrow hallways lead to high-volume rooms with light beams. Light via ventilation shafts that are slanted and carefully cut to provide fixed places of illumination that create striking changes in light and dark from confined areas to abrupt openness as one goes forward. It seems as though water drips in as they enter another world and distant echoes reverberate. Rhythmic patterns, unexpected changes in humidity, and sudden spikes in temperature from below, creating the unsettling impression of walking into the underworld's jaws, where there is a subtle distortion of reality. These effects are not coincidental, seem to have been designed to guide participants in rituals, resembling an old initiation journey into altered realms of consciousness. Notably, some portions are designed featuring soft zigzag or spiral designs that make it simple for travelers to get lost their sense of direction, as though they were being drawn into another reality. One researcher previously said, "This is a mystical device that is programmable using light, water, and stone." One of the Bay tunnel system's most underappreciated yet extremely advanced characteristics is its ability to completely control water and air movement without the use of mechanical equipment. Many ventilation shafts were positioned symmetrically at an angle within the chambers to provide constant airflow. These vents would bring in cooler air from the outside as the heat from the subterranean hot springs climbed, resulting in a natural convection cycle similar to those seen in contemporary air conditioners, but constructed thousands of years ago. Remarkably, geophysicists studying the site recorded considerable variations in humidity and air pressure between chambers, demonstrating that the ventilation and air circulation system was purposefully installed rather than at random. Designed and meticulously computed according to some academics, the main goal of the purpose of this method was to give ritual participants a multisensory experience, leading them through waves of heat, cold, dryness, and humidity that alternate as a metaphorical methods of spiritual cleansing via the physical world. Even though the tunnels are located beneath Bayer, a posh Roman resort city, with several contemporary engineers and archaeologists are starting to wonder if the Romans were indeed the engineering quality of this structure's original constructors is significantly superior to the normal building skills of the time, along with architectural accuracy and a ceremonial plan, so improved to the point where it has generated new hypotheses. Could this tunnel system be the potential remnants of a vanished pre-Roman society, in contrast to other historic subterranean structures such as the Hypoxia in Turkey or Diranuyu in Malta's ideally constructed rituals? And incomplete understanding the strong resemblances raise a more troubling question. Has history purposefully ignored the early years of ancient engineering? According to scholarly theories, the tunnels served as ceremonial travels for initiation privileges, during which participants experienced a metaphorical death and rebirth. But this was more than that. It was a real-life physical experience of hearing flowing sound as you descended into darkness. Water feeling waves of heat and ultimately being cleaned by cool water, like if the spatial choreography helped the soul depart its darkness and reappear in the light. Shows that the designer was a spiritual architect in addition to an engineer. Someone with a thorough understanding of human psychology and physiology who could causing change through perception and surroundings. Despite numerous, the Bayer tunnels continue to hold a wealth of unsolved mysteries. Ritual chambers are still concealed from public view, and ancient writings embedded in them, one of the stone artifacts that the enigmatic builders left behind, have been damaged. Waiting beneath the earth's layers in secret, one thing is for sure: never merely a Roman bathhouse, as some oversimplified hypotheses assert. Mysterious work of art that combines mythology, science, architecture, and spirituality, wonder that still defies comprehension in the 21st century. If everything as you just read, ancient builders built more than 2,000 years ago. A subterranean system with an engineering level of accuracy that we are still unable to thoroughly describe. The issue then arises: do we actually comprehend history? What do you consider the hypothesis that buildings such as the Bayer tunnels could be relics of a highly developed society, lost to time and overlooked by popular history? Post your opinions in the comments. Is this anything that was created by the Romans, or something much older and more enigmatic, without writing, without inscriptions, without temples, myths, or tales? Only round, nearly flawless spherical stones rest quietly in Costa Rica's thick woods, as though someone had purposefully placed a note in a language that these are the dickest spheres that contemporary humanity is still unable to understand. 300 enigmatic stone balls made hundreds of years ago by a missing Dickie's culture and civilization, and no one understands why they created them. How they created mathematically exact spheres out of such hard stone, and no one can see why a society with the intelligence to do that left nothing more than these silent, icy stones strewn throughout the landscape. This is not only an archaeological enigma, it is a void in human history, a region of quiet where ancient wisdom and time stone converge in a labyrinth of unresolved issues. Were initially identified in the 1930s when the United Fruit Corporation banana plantations were established by clearing portions of the tropical rainforest to create the enigmatic Dies stone spheres. Archaeologists were instantly astounded by the delta in southern Costa Rica. Too far. More than there have been 300 spheres observed, with diameters ranging from a few dozen cm to more than 5 meters, and some of them can weigh up to 15 tons. What's remarkable about them is their almost flawless roundness, which is so accurate that even contemporary machinery with the majority of these spheres were carved from grand diorite, which is difficult to duplicate. A very hard stone that can only be found in mountains dozens of kilometers distant. This suggests that the prehistoric people were not only skilled in mining and moving enormous stones over rough ground, but they also had sculpting skills that were far prescient. But what really confounds scholars is not only the technological accomplishment, but also a deeper mystery. Who made them? Why? And for what reason? Aside from these stones, out of all the mysteries, did their society leave no further traces? The enigma of the society that gave rise to the Dis One spheres. Perhaps the most perplexing component of the riddle is the Dis people. Most scholars concur that these spheres originated from an indigenous civilization that was previously thriving, flourished between roughly 600 and 1500 in Costa Rica's southern regions, AD, before completely vanishing when Spanish colonists arrived. However, what is most astounding is that they did not leave behind any writing system. Symbols, no written documents of any kind, no stone inscriptions, no temples, archives, no engraved writings that have been preserved over time, and just a few pottery pieces, a few graveyards, and most notably, hundreds of silent stone spheres strewn around the terrain, in contrast to the modern civilizations of the Inca and Maya that left calendars, oral traditions, mythology, and scripts that are documented in writing or picture. It appeared that the Dies were a culture that left no legacy for future generations, at least not in words. This complete quiet makes any effort to piece together their very challenging and speculative worldview, beliefs, or life purpose. According to some accounts, the Dies might have been overrun by more powerful nearby tribes or carried away in new colonial strife and migrant waves that resulted in their erased sans trace. According to a different view, They were an oral civilization where all knowledge was transmitted orally, and the memory of their culture was preserved after the knowledge keepers passed away, died beside them. So why did they not write, carve, or record anything? Make stone spheres that are so flawlessly shaped that contemporary technology finds it difficult to. These were not arbitrary items to reproduce. Rather, they show geometric contemplation and comprehension of physical forces, as well as potentially a profound metaphorical or spiritual language, which is why some contemporary academics think that these stones, the final tangible language that a vanished civilization may have left behind, could be spheres. Upon deeper examination, messages in stone were transmitted into the vast void of history. Experts found that certain sphere clusters were positioned in arcs or straight lines, possibly in accordance with celestial occasions like solstices or the sun's movement, indicating they might have been included in ancient stone calendars or ceremonial landscapes. Clusters were discovered close to burial mounds, suggesting that they had religious or funerary significance and might have served as protectors, spiritual symbols, or images of the hereafter cosmic cycles. According to a more theoretical explanation, the spheres could symbolic maps that can imitate celestial constellations and planetary placements, or possibly mythical places that have been lost to time. According to researchers like Eva Zapp and George in their book Atlantis in America, Erickson put forth this theory, which links specific sphere clusters to celestial coordinates. But as of yet, no solid proof has been discovered. The exact methods utilized to form the spheres in order to verify such assertions remain up for discussion in the absence of distinct tool marks. Most academics think Teddy's might have employed abrasion with water, fire, softer stones, and sand in a gradual and methodical procedure that might have required years to refine every sphere. But even if that were the case, why would a community devote so much energy to creating hundreds of stone spheres rather than constructing city walls, palaces, or pyramids like other ancient societies? Results in the disturbing insight that they possessed the technical ability to, and yet just these circular stones were left behind. This is ironic because history that a society able to create such famous pieces could not endure the waves of cultural arrays and colonization, leaving them to be classified as a lost civilization due to the fact that numerous treasure seekers have destroyed or damaged spheres because they thought gold may be concealed within. Others have been moved from their original locations to embellish homes, parks, or business structures. This not only took away their historical significance, but it also made it almost impossible to reassemble their original configuration and significance. The Costa Rican government has made great efforts to recover in recent years. In 2014, the remaining spheres were catalogued and protected as national heritage. The DQ sphere sites were being designated as World Heritage Sites by UNESCO. The Dai's spheres remained silent, confirming their special significance to human history. But substantial evidence of a lost past that suggests what we think is inconceivable can actually be. They are not merely stone balls in a period of history that we do not yet fully comprehend. On the boundary between old engineering and modern engineering, there are enormous question marks. An eternal mystery. They are the last remnant of a tribe that made the decision to communicate with the future through shape rather than words, and until we find the last remnants of the puzzle, they will remain there in silence, rebellious, and resilient like petrified historical tears. What are your thoughts on the destined spheres? Are they religious symbols, astronomical calendars from antiquity, or maybe even traces of an extinct culture? If these stones are indeed communications, then what do those who look back from the future have to say? Share your comments. Who knows? You might be the one to solve this enigma in a whole new way.